up a little bit, but I think in general it needs to be kind of tired. Yeah. Okay. At first I was like, wait, I'm starting on a D. This is in the flat, and the key signature tricks me into thinking that I'm in the wrong key. And then we hadn't decided on a date. Okay. So let's talk right after.
Okay. Well, I've got a mentor meeting.
Oh, okay.
Right after. I just no rush.
Well, 7. Yeah, a little bit. I just want to make sure that, okay, so Abby, talking about guests, so were there any dates in November?
I think so, because
it was the day of
we're going to restaurant.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. My name's Tony Fisher. I am so grateful to have you all here with me this morning and with us this morning, especially those of you who are back for the first time in a while. Returning folks from the north, it's so good when you arrive, and I even felt a breath of fresh breeze come in the door with you, along with you. So I'm grateful for all of you, not just our returnees, but everyone who are part and parcel of this congregation. And I'm especially grateful to have back with us as worship associate Skip Lundborg.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tony, and good morning. It is my pleasure to extend a welcome today. In order to do so, a few things to say. We're glad that you're here, maybe a member, maybe civilian, some seated in here, others on the pavilion. And then there are those using Facebook to view, and it's for certain that we welcome you too. However you joined us, afar and so near, whoever and all, you are most welcome here. If you've just found us, so grateful are we. But stay with us, because there's much more to see. So we are a welcome, and just so you know, in our minds and our spirits, we're seeking to grow. Our goal, a community of peace, justice, and love, where our values are lived out beyond and above. Is there more than a welcome here? Yes, that's correct. We hope to find ways that help you connect. 'Tis time now for me this welcome to conclude. So please, a deep breath and the morning's prelude.
Thank you. In the midst of our striving, in our quest for greater understanding, in our yearning for peace, in our struggle for justice, in our hunger for love, let us also remember the need for quiet, for time to connect with the oneness of all things, to find the serenity that allows all these things to flourish internally so that they can be expressed externally. Our deepest thoughts can open up the universe. Please join me in sharing our chalice lighting response that you'll see on the screen or in your orders of service. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. And let's rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, which is number 79 in the gray hymnal. Words will be on the screen. Words by Ralph Waldo Emerson. No number tallies nature up. Sean will lead us in this. We're singing 3 verses today. No number tallies nature up,
no tribe its house can fill. It is the shining fount of life and pours the deluge still, and gathers by its fragile flowers along the centuries, from race on race, the rarest flowers, its wreath shall nothing miss. It writes the past in characters of rock and fire and scroll, the building in the coral sea, the planting of the coal, and thefts from satellites and rings and broken stars it drew, and out of spent and aged things it formed the world anew. Blend war and trade and creeds and song, let ripen race on race, the sunburnt world that we shall breed of all the countless days. No ray is dimmed, no totem worn, the oldest force is new, and fresh the rose on yonder thorn gives back the heavens untrue.
On this Sunday morning, we join the world in dread anticipation of continued violence in the Middle East. The horrors that we witnessed last Saturday seem to us an unprecedented and horrific escalation of a long and complex conflict. In addition to our sense of horror, there is in this room anger, fear, sadness, There's frustration and hopelessness in the face of so much hate. Some may feel these things deeply. Some only a faint twinge for a situation so far away. There is not a lot of hope. In lifting up pluralism as a value, Unitarian Universalists share the ideal that people of different traditions and different backgrounds can find a home here as we center a principles and values-based approach to our individual and collective spiritual journeys. Thus it is that within this congregation and within our congregations across the country, there are members and friends whose hearts are in Israel this morning, and those whose hearts are in Gaza, in Palestine. And while none of us should accept the political failures in the region and across the globe that have brought us to this point, and while none of us should condone violence in any way or any form as a solution, we must continue to hold one another across our differences. And we must especially hold the innocent people caught up in this untenable situation in the depths of our hearts. In our service today, we'll be talking about the impact on Eastern religions on our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And mentioning that because it is the time of year when we celebrate Diwali, Hindu festival of light and the victory of light over darkness. On the night of Diwali, many Hindus light a row of small lamps at the threshold of their homes to remind themselves that awakening to the light in our hearts is incomplete if it does not radiate from within us to the darkness outside. We can choose to add to the darkness by fueling the fires of hate and mistrust, or we can act in ways that build a sense of love and trust in a world that needs both. We can work to elevate the spirit of peace and goodness and level thinking in the Middle East. Or we can work to minimize the divides here in our own country, in our own community, that threaten safety and security. In this moment, I urge you to consider the light within and how you might radiate that light outward. It may be that you can direct that light into social or political action. Or it may be that you can simply channel that light more freely into your daily life. Let's take a moment together in silence as we each consider what we might offer the world in the way of light. And then if you feel it appropriate, I hope that you'll come forward and light a candle for peace, for goodness, for love, for hope, for all those people who are caught in the middle. Let's take some time together. There are lights here in the back. And for those of you on the pavilion, there are lights right there. People speak of hope as if it is this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spiders' webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, grit and determination, skinned knees, but always rises for another go. May we hold hope for peace while we act for peace. Let's join in our centering hymn, number 352 in the gray hymnal, Find a Stillness. The words will be on your screen. Tension, all the anxieties that world brings into our own, we still need to contend with our individual joys and sorrows. And that's what we celebrate and honor in this time of sharing. I ask this week and every week for folks to refrain from announcements or political statements. This is a time of personal sharing within this group of people who find comfort with one another, who find unity, who find joy, who share sorrow. If you have a joy or a sorrow you'd like to share today, I hope you'll raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone, and feel free to express what's in your heart.
I find great solace in being a member of this community.
Thank you.
I'm Kati Griffith. I've been in grief for a long time, and now the grief has exploded. I can't believe what's happening right now to all the children in the Middle East. I remember myself as a 4-year-old being bombed and shot at all the sorrow that I still carry 80 years later.
Thank you, Kati.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Laurent, and I am a Jewish woman. Not because I go to temple, but because this is the way I was raised, and this is how I feel. Tony talks about hope. Let me share two stories with you. When people ask me what it means to be Jewish, I tell them a story. There's a tidal wave that's going to hit the United States, and it's going to kill everyone. And the chief rabbi, who's the last one to speak after the cardinal gets on and gives everybody the last rites, and the Protestants get on and repent for their sins, the rabbi gets up and says, "Okay, Jews, you've got 24 hours to learn to live underwater." That's what it means to be Jewish. Then I read something very beautiful this week as I was reading all of the horror stories. And that is, what do the Jewish holidays mean? They mean they tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat.
I have a joy on behalf of Abby and Sean. Their little boys are turning 6 tomorrow and 13 next week, respectively.
Good morning. My name is Diane Keys. I have a sorrow. 2 days ago, one of our students that was in our program, he's now a student at FGCU, he had a mental breakdown. And when his parents called the officers for help, they tased him a couple times. And when they took him to the hospital, they checked him, he was fine. They ended up not leaving him at the hospital. They took him to the police station. So my husband went and advocated for him. So now he's at David Lawrence Center. I'd like you guys to keep him in your hearts and pray for him.
Thank you, Diane. And amidst that sorrow, I have two joys to share. One is that you may have seen the announcement come out that Jane Mitchell and Eric Anderson have announced the birth of their son, Owen Mitchell Anderson. A week ago, this past Thursday, a new member of our congregation has arrived. And last night, I had the joy of officiating at the wedding of Daniel Goodset and Hillary Glazer. Dan is our tech. Ken, who is out there doing the job today, while Dan starts off on his honeymoon, was there doing the tech at the wedding. It was a joyous Western wedding where the bride and groom rode in on horseback and shared a wonderful ceremony among friends and relatives. It was a great joy to be there and a great joy to share it with you. Grateful for all that you shared this morning, all those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in your heart. Let's join together in the spirit of meditation. The Hindu goddess Lakshmi holds a votive lamp, tilted perfectly to feed oil to a lighted wick. She stands patient, in posture perfect, to proffer steady light. Not one drop can be lost, not one ripple on the oil can be loosed to compromise the flame. A steady light burns to light the altar until it is wholly given up. May we guard closely that store of goodness, truth, and beauty we have gleaned in the harvest. May we give intensely, fully, to the altar of our calling, yielding a steady flame. May we stand before the altar with pure integrity of devotion, abundant love in our hearts. May the unique flame of our offering burn brightly, generous, offering to all of life until all is given.
the excuse me, the Bhagavad Gita, written between the 5th and 2nd centuries before the Common Era, is a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna is a young prince, a man of action, living in the midst of society and confronting essentially the same problems that challenge us today. So he represents you and me. His friend and spiritual teacher, Sri Krishna, is the Lord of love, who dwells in the depths of consciousness. He is the Atman, which is to say, the real self. And here is Krishna talking about service. At the beginning of time, I declared 2 paths for the pure heart: the intuitive path of spiritual wisdom and the active path of selfless service. He who shrinks action does not attain freedom, nor does he gain perfection by abstaining from work. Indeed, there is no one who rests for even an instant. Every creature is driven to action by its own nature. Whoever abstains from action while allowing the mind to dwell on sensual pleasures cannot be called a sincere spiritual aspirant. But they excel who control their senses through their mind and use them for selfless service. You are obliged to act, Arjuna, even to maintain your body. Fulfill all your duties. Action is better than inaction. The world is imprisoned in selfless action. Act selflessly, without any thought to personal profit. Living creatures are nurtured by food, and food is nourished by the rain. This rain is the water of life that comes from selfless action, worship, and service. Strive constantly to preserve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless work, one attains the supreme goal of life. The second reading is The Law of Light by Abhijit Naskar. Light shared is light amplified. Light hoarded is lost. Life is light when lived for others, and it's darkness when lost in snobbish cause. We are truly knowledgeable when our knowledge annuls animosity. We truly have existence solely when we exist to elevate all of humanity. An elevation of humanity happens one neighborhood at a time. Time and space have meaning only when they help our spirits align. In short, there is neither time nor space. Either everything is love or sheer nonsense.
In a time full of war be peace. In a time full of doubt, just believe. Yeah, there ain't that much difference between you and me. In a time full of war, be peace. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Don't hide in the dark. You were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. La, 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 la. In a place that needs change, make a difference. In a time full of noise, just listen. 'Cause life is but a breeze, better live it. In a place that needs a change, make a difference. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Oh, don't hide in the dark. You were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be a light. La, 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 la. La, yeah, it's hard to live in color when you just see black and white. In a world full of hate, be a light.
In the early 1800s, the first translations into European languages of the great Eastern spiritual texts, the Hindu Vedas, the teachings of Buddha, the writings of Confucius and Mencius, the Islamic poets of Persia, all began filtering into the hands of educated men and women here in America. And foremost among American thinkers who advocated for these non-Western faith traditions to be taken seriously as possible paths to religious understanding were the Transcendentalists. The Transcendentalist movement that blossomed in the 1830s and 1840s has continued to influence American literature, religion, and social thought to the present day. And at the heart of their ethos lies the idea that there is something of the divine, or you might call it pure truth, or pure love, or pure light within each of us. And that our unactivated potential cannot be reasoned into being, but must be ignited by some connection with that which is greater. For Transcendentalists, that spark most often was expressed from their connection to nature. While nearly all of the well-known figures of the movement were born in the first few decades of the 19th century, the wider core of women and men who contributed to Transcendentalism spanned several generations. The circle of people were well known to each other, meeting and corresponding regularly, sharing their experiences, their thoughts, and their writings. Almost all were Unitarian. Almost all were very well educated, either in a formal setting or in private. Margaret Fuller, for example, despite being denied the kind of education that was available to young men of the day, was translating Virgil at the age of 6. And by the time she met Ralph Waldo Emerson at the age of 26, she was undoubtedly one of the most well-read people in New England. The Transcendentalists were then something of an elite group, but steadfastly opposed, at least in principle, to class distinctions of any form or any social inequity. While certainly not free of misogyny for its time, transcendentalism was striking in its openness to women and to feminist critiques of patriarchy. Margaret Fuller's Women in the 19th Century, published in 1843, is still one of the great feminist manifestos. As Lawrence Buell, historian and professor of American literature at Harvard University, writes, 50 years after independence, the Transcendentalists were on the verge of becoming the first American youth movement, the nation's first counterculture. It was the first movement to argue vigorously for what mainstream popular culture takes for granted today, that youthful vision and vigor should count at least as much, if not more, than stodgy so-called wisdom of elders. And their approach took two forms that are relevant to Unitarian Universalists today. First, they argued that everything should be open to question. As Emerson wonders at the beginning of his first book, Nature, why should we not also enjoy an original relation to the universe? Why should we not have a poetry and a philosophy of insight and not of tradition, and a religion by revelation to us and not the history of theirs? In the Transcendentalist view, every individual, every generation should consider how they want to reframe the world and begin anew. Second, they worked under the assumption that the scope of American thought of the day was far too provincial, far too dependent on British thought and Christian models. They read, discussed, and incorporated contemporary French and German thought, as well as the wisdom of Asian literature and spirituality, as I have mentioned. While there was a sense of the exotic in discovering these Eastern texts, the more these people read, the more they studied, the more they found their universal truths that resonated with their own sensibilities. Thoreau took much from these writings, reporting in Walden that he kept a copy of the Bhagavad Gita on his bedside table and read something from it every morning. In comparison, Thoreau wrote, our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. When Margaret Fuller was the editor of The Dial, a magazine founded by the Transcendentalists to reflect their new way of thinking, she worked with Thoreau and Emerson to institute a new feature called Ethical Scriptures, which highlighted translated excerpts from many of these ancient sources for much wider publication. Emerson's own philosophy gradually shifted over the years to incorporate more and more Hindu and Buddhist thought. According to some Hindu scholars, Emerson's popular essay, The Oversoul, was as clear an articulation of the Hindu concept of Atman as existed in the English language. Atman is an individual's true essence, or soul, which is infused with this entirely identical with the universal spirit of Brahman, or ultimate reality. Within us, Emerson wrote, is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and article is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love. While it's hard to actually provide a succinct summary of what transcendentalism truly was or is, this passage of Emerson's may come the closest, at least to its spiritual essence. The notion of a latent divinity with each one of us, the potential of which is not going to be reasoned into being as much as it needs to be ignited. In the writings, the spark often comes from a direct experience of nature, a connection with something bigger than the self, a recognition of interdependence, a fusion of self and universe. And what's often missing in the texts as they are expressed and published is that spark of human connection that provides that peace that's missing, that sense of community. But it's there in the conversations and the intellectual and spiritual communion between friends and colleagues that we know existed within this group, sharing such an idea. Louisa May Alcott wrote of the meetings that she had in Elizabeth Peabody's bookstore with the women of the movement, where they shared life's vicissitudes, the sharp discipline of poverty and pain, of sorrow and success. And while within the movement some placed greater emphasis on individual renewal and connection with nature, others argued that the transcendental experience called us back to social connection, activism, and change. A great example of the tension that existed within the community about this balance between sort of spiritual awareness and social action was when Margaret Fuller was working with Ralph Waldo Emerson. Robert D. Richardson notes in his book, The Mind on Fire, Emerson, The Mind on Fire, that not too long after Emerson met Fuller, he was able to finish his book, Nature, which had been drifting towards a theoretical idealism. Richard suggests that it was Fuller that pushed Emerson toward an idealism that is concerned with ideas only as they can be lived, with the spiritual only when it animates. Fuller pushed Emerson toward an idealism that is concerned with the ideas only as they can be lived, and the spiritual only when it animates. Emerson was also a player in another wonderful example of the tension between the focus on individual renewal and social renewal. During the time that Henry David Thoreau was living at Walden, he was jailed for refusing to pay his poll tax as a protest against the injustice of the ongoing United States war against Mexico. The story goes that when Ralph Waldo Emerson came to get Thoreau out of jail, he looked through the bars and said, "Henry, what are you doing in there?" To which Thoreau replied, "Waldo, what are you doing out there?" Because of their many beliefs, the Transcendentalists became involved in efforts directed at social renewal, efforts to reverse conditions that prevented individuals from realizing their fullest potential. In one of the key moments that Thoreau related in his book on the Merrimack River, he talked about the realization that came through the Gita of that aligned spiritual and action-based path. And it brought for him together in just a moment an understanding that they cannot be separated but must be aligned. One must animate the other. One must fulfill the other. Transcendentalism did not impact Unitarian Universalism directly for some time. They existed on parallel paths. The roundabout path through American culture and literature finally came back to this movement at various times as part of the humanist movement of the 30s, 40s, and 50s that leaned towards a naturalism. The cultural movement of the 1960s, the women's movement in the 1970s, A sense of spirituality, growing spirituality among our young people today are infused with transcendentalist ideas. And we owe our understanding and our honoring and our belief in pluralism, in its religious and in its widest forms, to these people who began to read the text and understand them as deeply as they could in their time and relate them to a wider world. As we journey forward together in times that are fraught, may we find the pure core, the pure light of our hearts in alignment with an active path of selfless service. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, we but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a person changes their own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards them. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do.
The words and music of today's service have come to us as a gift, and now we have an opportunity to respond, not simply to today's service, but a time of gratitude for all that UUCGN means and is and does. The offering will be greatly received. You may also send a contribution to support this congregation. The information on the screen makes that easy to accomplish. We have a few reminders of what's happening this week at UUCGN before we sing our closing hymn. It is great to have the choir back. And yes. And if you have an interest in singing, they have an empty chair just set aside for you. Thursdays at 6:30 right here. Come on. If you have a question about that, check with Sean. But it's, you know what singing is, so become part of it. There will be an introduction to Tai Chi this morning at 11:30 down in Thomas Hall. It's an opportunity to see if you would like to attend the weekly Tai Chi class that will begin to be offered on Monday afternoons beginning on October 23rd. Plan to attend the kickoff for Wonderful Wednesdays on October 25th. A terrific harvest menu of homemade soups, bread, salads, and apple desserts, and followed by a guest musician, folk songs with purpose, I think it is called. Okay. That will be happening on October 25th. On Tuesday evening this week, there'll be an opening for a reception of an exhibit called Here Together, which illustrates the rich history, traditions, and enduring legacy of the Seminole tribe here in Florida. The exhibit features, among others, the work of Brian Zapata, whose wife Laurel is a member here, and whose children have gone through our religious exploration program. So there's much more happening in this community, and I urge you to follow your e-news to get all the details. There's one other item that I want to present to you this morning. The readings that I was privileged to read were about selfless service and about elevating humanity one neighborhood at a time. And we have a wonderful moment of serendipity, because late in the week, after the other parts of the service were organized, we learned of something that you can do that is selfless service and lifts community one neighborhood at a time. It's all in one package, and here it is. The Army Corps of Engineers is working with many groups in the community, NAACP, Naples Pride, others, on a plan to how to deal with the kinds of problems that was created when Hurricane Ian swept through River Park, for example. It's a very complex process, but there's one simple place where you can help. Every home, and there will be in this total area about 1,000 of them, needs to receive a bilingual flyer so that real people can be part of the decisions that affect their communities. Judy Freiberg, would you stand up, Judy? She prefers to be in a pavilion, but I've dragged her indoors today. Judy has the task of organizing the distribution of those flyers. So, if you have maybe an hour or two, it'll be coming up a little bit in the future. And dealing with the federal government and community groups doesn't always go real smooth, but it will be happening. Judy would like to get a list of people who might be interested in delivering those leaflets. Obviously, the more people we have, the fewer of the 1,000 doors we have to worry about. So, Judy is here. She'd like to have your phone number and email so that as things eventuate, we can be in touch with you about that, okay? And right at the end of the service, even before coffee. Can it be? Yes, it can be. All right. Now it is time for our...
I would like to introduce myself.
Ah,
Yeah. And, so, and he's, well, he's here from Tallahassee.
all right, great. Good to see you.
I hope he has a good voice because we're ready to sing.
Yes. Our closing hymn is number 118 in the hymnal, This Little Light of Mine. Please rise in body or spirit and join in the singing.
And choral benedictions. Go out into the world in peace. Let your light shine. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. And change will come to you. Be the voice
Are they? Yeah, because I am also. I think, yes.